मैं चाहता हूं कि प्रधानमंत्री और सारे मुख्यमंत्री ये मिलाकर एक टीम हो जो देश को आगे चलाए।
Narendra Modi is a leader of India's Hindu nationalist party. The Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, is predicted to be a strong favorite in national elections. New York Times correspondents provide a profile of the man who may be India's next prime minister, beginning with his controversial past.
In 2002, there was news that a train of Hindu activists had stopped in the town of Godhra in Gujarat in the midst of a Muslim slum. One of the cars was set on fire and 59 Hindus died ghastly deaths. It is thought that the Muslims set fire to one of the cars of the train. What followed in the next days was a horrific bloodletting of Hindu mobs attacking Muslims. I arrived not long afterwards. I remember going to the site of one of the most notorious of the massacres that occurred there at the Gulbarg Society, and I could smell the roasted flesh of the people who had burned to death in that house. Witnesses were telling me that they had begged the police to intervene and stop the mobs, and that they stood by, and that leaders of groups affiliated with the Bharatiya Janata Party were inciting the violence. A couple of months after the violence, I went back to Gujarat because I wanted to find out more about what had actually happened. I interviewed the Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi. I asked him if he had any regrets about what had happened in his state in that period. Women were openly raped. Hundreds and hundreds of people were killed. He told me his greatest regret was that he didn't manage the media very well. I left the interview feeling chilled by my interview with the Chief Minister. He had not shown any regret or expressed any empathy for those who had been slaughtered in his state on his watch. I don't believe he's ever granted another interview to a New York Times reporter ever since.
Mr. Modi is not charged for any crime during the riots till date, but there are widespread allegations that the intention was to polarize the politics so that the Hindu voters can vote for them. Since then, Mr. Modi is winning the elections in Gujarat again and again. He claims that he has done lots of developmental work in Gujarat. To some extent, those claims are right.
Gujarat has grown about 10% a year for the last 10 years, and that's seen as one of Mr. Modi's biggest accomplishments as Chief Minister. Mr. Modi has had a great effort to reach out to businesses of all sizes, but in particular to large businesses. He's made great efforts to recruit Indian corporations and multinational corporations to come to Gujarat to set up production facilities there, to set up ports. And he's done so in large part by cutting the red tape that is endemic in Indian government. There is a big question about whether everybody in Gujarat has benefited from the growth of the state. Supporters of Mr. Modi say that the growth has been broad-based and has helped every Gujarati. But critics say that the growth has not been even. In particular, they worry that Muslims have been left behind in this growth.
There's also a potentially disruptive element in the relationship with the United States, which took a fairly hard line in rebuking him. His visa privileges were revoked a few years after the riots. This is quite an unusual step for the US government to take. And although Modi talks very little about this in his campaign, it has to be an issue for him. If he becomes prime minister, he will be able to come and go to the United States as a world leader, but this issue has to be something that made an impact on him. Now, he has been extremely careful to avoid any inflammatory language during his campaign, and really restyled himself as a technocrat, as a good government person, and been careful to avoid anything that could be seen as divisive. But that question remains open. You can find people on both sides of this divide, and some people say he's just a very dangerous candidate for that reason.